Hello, thank you for the great presentations. But I would like to make sure that we hear from our friends here who have not spoken yet. So I'm going to direct some questions to them. I'm going to start with Florence. We've heard this morning from many of you about the possibility of using smart city platforms for participatory citizenship, for intensifying engagement with communities. But given the uneven access to technology, what can we do to ensure wider participation?
Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Dean Elcurry. It's a pleasure to speak, especially following what has already been mentioned. I tend to work from the perspective of digital ethics and policy, just for those in the room who do not know. I situate my work in terms of technocultural ethics and looking at, first and foremost, education. So as an educator, we tend to look at AI literacy and digital equity in terms of putting not just technologies in the hands of folks, but looking at the systems that they live, breathe, work every day in. So looking at the culture, getting hyper-local, as the speakers from this morning have indicated, is super important, working across sectors. And it's clear that in this room, we have so many disciplines actually represented. And it is even more crucial now, given that we don't have these wide bursts of cash that we can rely on from only one source, that we coordinate amongst one another and tap into the partnerships that are within the cities, within the regions, and specific agencies, institutions, so that we can gather insight from the grassroots as well as top-down policy.
Yeah, please chime in if you want to add any comments to this. So, otherwise, I'll turn to Raimundo. We saw already this bewildering array of possibilities now available. The last list was really incredible. So I'm turning to you because you are in the trenches, in the field, taking these possibilities and deploying them in very tangible ways, and in your projects in the city of Coral Gables. What are the lessons that you can share with us about bringing emerging technology into application?
Thank you, Dean. Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's always making sure that every project is a strategic project that improves quality of life, that connects, that aligns with the needs and priorities of our residents. That, they are fluid and they change. Sometimes we have a focus on mobility projects or traffic engineering projects. Sometimes it's about public safety, but at the end it's holistic approach where we deploy these state-of-the-art technologies like digital twins, artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing. All those technologies always are aligned with strategic projects. So we are solving a problem, we are trying to improve quality of life or addressing a problem for the community. The way to engage the community in that process is always making it participatory, so doing focus groups at the beginning of any project, listening from the community, listening from the voice of the customer, and getting that triple helix model of partners that we partner with the university, we partner with the business community, and we partner also with the NGOs, and also with researchers in academia and scientific institutions. So we bring them all together, and that's where we work on this project. So we have done a lot of the things that we have discussed today, applying LiDAR technology, advanced photogrammetry, digital twinning technology that we are showing in our booth here with our lab team. So we have implemented a lot of those solutions. At the end, they have been used to improve issues like traffic management, improve issues like citizen engagement, like using AI and chatbots and agentic AI in our apps and websites. We have improved the way how we serve our residents and our visitors. Implementing IoT technologies like traffic sensors, environmental sensors, smart city poles. All those technologies also have had the high ROI, and the KPIs that we have improved, we measure them. So we make sure that everything that we implement, not only solving a problem, is measurable, and also we can measure the positive impact that they had in the community.
Thank you. Well, one of my frustrations was the whole smart cities paradigm and discourse is that it tends to be focused almost exclusively on efficiencies, optimizations, making things run smoothly. But we've heard already today, and also from Natalie and Jennifer, about there's more. It's about also providing a ground of possibility for new things to happen in the city. I think this is where it's most exciting. So I would like to hear from all of you about that aspect of the technology and its deployment.
I'm going to mention really quick, we are in the centennial year of City of Coral Gables, same than the university, and we have been developing a lot of experiences for the visitors in our lab, and some of them are kind of like creating virtual tours, mixed reality experiences, so making it fun. So at the end, it's also bringing happiness to the community in the way how we deploy these technologies. They also can improve the experience of the visitors. So we are focusing on a lot of those things today also. Like you said, Dean, is to also to make the more livable, but also improve the experience of our visitors.
Mm. Any?
Can I just make two comments? So the first, especially after the panel this morning, I was really curious, like, to hear from the panelists and from everyone, like, planning for smart cities. Like, what have we learned about that in the last 15 years? And I think Coral Gables is such an interesting example, because what I see is, like, the big cities are always going to innovate, but it's like the opportunity for smaller and mid-sized cities to experiment and to use these technologies to kind of like punch above their weight in terms of innovation that I find so interesting, especially when there's a university here to help. And then to your comment about like sort of like efficiency versus novelty, like that's the market driving, I think, in a lot of ways. And you know, if you could add up the dollars of like value created by smart city efficiency projects versus like new things that are serving consumers to help them do new things, I think that the value would be so much on the side of like applications that touch people's lives, that have, you know, helped them use the city or live in the city differently.
But maybe the possibility of opening a whole new sector for services actually has a greater potential also in terms of revenue. So just I think it's just not discussed enough, and we tend to revert always to the efficiency language, right?
Yeah, a part of what tends to be the discussion, and this one is no exception, where we are so busy thinking about whether or not we can that we never think about whether or not we should, right? And this is where ethics comes in. It's that gray zone between certainty and uncertainty, and the binary of signal and silence. But many things in the city are silent. How do we gather data based on the silences? Where do we find those who are indeed marginalized, right? If we're doing a numbers game and we design for a majority, we're continuing to exacerbate the existing power relations, oppressions that have always plagued us in a city's legacy. So how do we design to allow for some of that uncertainty and guidance? And so, empowering people and having the government, industry, and academia work together to look at ways that aren't necessarily money makers, but that serve humanity.
Before I turn to the audience, this is the dean in me and my interest in very didactic statements. Could you articulate for us, each of you, one takeaway for our students here?
So I think one takeaway when we think about smart cities, I think, is that technology is powerful in two moments. One is when it becomes invisible. So probably none of you, not even you, the dean, knows how many lamps we have here. But we are sure that if you switch a button, it will light it up. So when technology is invisible, it's powerful. But also when it's the very beginning, when we don't know exactly what we can do with this technology, and then we can play with that. So I think that's why I think the makers movement in recent years, I think they are changing a lot what we can do with technology, and children and high schoolers, they love that because then they can play with electronics, with AI, with tech. And I think stimulating this in our students is the best that we can do. Not prescribe, okay, let me teach you how to make a city more efficient. But no, this is a technology. Play with that.
One lesson for us over the years, and I always tell this to my team, is that we are not in the technology business, we are in the quality of life business, and always putting the customer or first in everything that we do. And in this case, over the years, also have been the ability to bring a little bit of that entrepreneurial and competitive mindset that people like me, for example, we had in the industry when we work in engineering in other sectors. Bringing that to the picture in our public sector organization is very important because we also need to experiment, we need to do R&D, we need to be innovative and keep our team very exponential because the consumer market, the residents, the visitors, they are also at that level today. They are already getting the benefits of using AI and automation and using those advanced tools. And they expect the same capabilities and experience to be provided from the public sector providers. So we are also on that mindset. I think that we shouldn't restrict ourselves, and we should be also entrepreneurial and experimental in our approach as well.
I'd like to advocate for a co-regulation mindset where we cooperate amongst many stakeholders, multi-stakeholder models, and bake in ethical considerations into everything we do, from K to 12 education systems, not just an afterthought, and build that consciousness into what we do to engineer smart cities.
My takeaway would be that policy and planning can shape the market for smart city technology to get designed and deployed. My students are studying a bunch of smart city plans this semester, looking at like how concerns about AI are being incorporated into them. And up until like last week, everything they were finding was about like kind of forestalling the risks, right? Like, what do we have to fear about this technology? And one of my students brought in the Beijing municipality AI plan, and it's the total opposite. It's basically like, here are 4 things that we need to fix, and we want to develop like world-class foundation models for each one of them. And this is going to be essentially like urban planning and industrial development put together. And it kind of blew my mind because it feels like the old smart cities, but it's actually much better designed to produce good results than any of those things where like they know what they want and how to get it. They just need to tell everybody to come together. And apparently there's like money to buy it too. So yeah, I think like doing what we do, we plan cities, we make policy to shape the future. Like, don't forget that. This isn't falling from the sky.
Great, thank you. Now, we have time, right, so for a few questions?
Hi, thank you for a wonderful panel there. We saw lots of possibilities of technology, but I would like to ask our CIO from Gables and for the others to comment as well. How do you measure the impact of these projects once they are deployed on the actual residents of the city and on commuters? Because if you have, for instance, New York, you cannot just measure what is the impact on residents, but also on commuters. Are we doing this, and if so, how?
So in our strategic action plan, every project that is tied to an action plan has those metrics defined. So what is the measurement of success? And those are the KPIs, the key performance indicators that we're going to measure after we implement the project. When we implemented smart public safety technologies, there were measurements related to crime statistics, very specific. When we are collaborating with the sustainability team on metrics related to applying technology for smart mobility, decarbonization, electrification of the fleet, or energy efficiency, there are very specific metrics that we are going to measure, like energy consumption, etc. When we work with traffic engineers on traffic projects, there are metrics specifically related to traffic flow, and like delays at the intersection for signal phase and timing type of metrics. So we have those specific KPIs. Now, on top of that, there are more holistic KPIs, what NIST defines as H KPIs, that to me are more important. They are more tied to citizen satisfaction. And those metrics are measured in our biannual community survey that we perform, where we actually talk to the citizens and to the businesses, to the business community, and then we ask them about specific metrics. So basically, there are many metrics. Some of them are very quantitative, like we measure in our traffic sensors. We have very specific metrics about traffic, for example. And in our enterprise system, we measure financials and asset management and many other metrics. But there are also those holistic KPIs that are very important that we also try to tie to the big picture.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for the discussion. I'm a student, so I'm not too deep into the workforce yet. I'm just curious, as AI gets more sophisticated and it becomes more cost-effective or efficient to just have the computer do it, how do we protect the role of planners and designers in making sure that everything is human-centric and not just the most efficient solution?
Yeah, so I hear a lot this question, but I'm still not very concerned actually about that, because some of us might remember, I don't know, when we started using computers in GIS long ago, or even AutoCAD in architecture. So there was this discussion that, okay, we are removing part of the workforce because we have this new technology, and that technology was very dumb. What we have now is much smarter, but I think if you can work with the technology as your companion, not as your competitor, I think you still can get a good partner, not a competitor. So I suggest that you go deeper into AI, not only the technical side of that, but also the conceptual side, how it's changing the way we see the world. And I'm pretty sure that you'll be happier than you would be 10 years ago working in a design office.
A lot of education involves training for this end goal of a vocation. And part of what I experience as an educator is that, students are seeking only what they think are possibilities at any particular moment. If you show them that there are more possibilities and that they too are training for jobs that don't even exist yet, that we have to have this kind of built-in capability of scaffolding to deal with uncertainty and to maximize their preparation to be resilient, to recalibrate and adapt to market forces, human needs, and to deal with the de-skilling and reskill, with all ages of the workforce, not just at the early stages as well.
I'll speak to sort of like, I don't know if you're engineering or architecture student, but what are you getting a degree in? Yeah, okay. So architecture, urban planning, urban design tend to change pretty slowly, those fields. We just did a piece of work last year for a consortium of big architecture firms. It was basically like the Chief Technology Officer Council. And they were trying to figure out, like, what do we do about generative AI? Because they were facing a situation where they had like young associates who were doing crazy stuff, like putting sensitive client data into ChatGPT and other AIs, using it to analyze, and then like putting the stuff that they didn't even really own that was coming back out of it into proprietary work products. So like it was, the whole system was broken. But through that process, what we started to realize was like, that's actually like something that they should find a way to enable, because having young people like teach themselves about the technology and what's possible to do with it would be a way of them learning and experimenting. So I think like practical advice would be like, play with the tools, use the tools, learn the tools, and then be the person in the organization who's like bringing them in and introducing them to the more senior people to help them understand new ways of working and creating value. Like I think there's a real opportunity to kind of like be the ambassador of the new thing.
I think there's a sense that what we lose with the collaboration, let's put it this way, with AI is the power of the imagination. But in fact, there's plenty, maybe too much imagination with AI. This is what it brings to the table. And what we bring is discernment. I think Jennifer mentioned this. We are good at actually judgment. So the combination of the wild imagination of AI and the human discernment is actually very powerful.
Yeah, I'm going through a process right now of trying to decide whether to write another book or not. And over the last 2 years, the way I write has changed. And what I have discovered, which I guess I always knew, is that I'm not a writer, I'm an editor. Like, I like to rewrite manuscripts. And it's that first draft that is the painful barrier. And like AI is kind of eliminating that. Like you can just throw your notes and crazy ideas at it and you get that first draft. And then I, as a writer, know I'm going to rewrite it 6 times. And that's what I enjoy doing. And so it's become a tool that has a very limited use in that creative, collaborative work that's writing a book. So I think it's a complicated set of choices.
I am afraid that we may become more integrators and less creators, and lose a little bit the muscle of the creativity by having all these tools doing a lot of those things for us. That's my concern about hyper adoption of AI today, is losing that muscle.
Yeah, I agree partially, because, for instance, I think sometimes we think, okay, but we in design or architecture, we might be losing creativity, etc. As if our cities were well designed and beautiful, right? They're not. They're crap. So, if we think that this is what we're losing, thanks God. we're losing crappy cities in most of the countries. So if young designers can work with AI to provide better designed cities, more efficient cities, oh my God, good. Don't trust, don't regret what you are losing. Not everything is good.
Hi. My question regarding surveillance, whether face recognition cameras are here or not, I don't know, but who owns the data being collected in smart cities, and who maintains this data and shares with whom? With capital owners, with corporate people, or who is protecting the data of citizens? And do you get consent from citizens to collect this data about privacy? And the second question about the unique cultural legacy of Redlands. Yesterday we talked in Architecture Roundtable here in Miami, how this unique cultural legacy of Redland can be preserved and celebrated using AI technology. Because Miami is unique, very intercultural. So many cultures are here, identities, and how to make citizens to engage, to participate, to design the cities where they can reflect their identity and culture.
I will answer the video surveillance question. So we have a network of CCTV cameras and other optical sensors, and we are a highly regulated agency. And there are many different types of sensors and IoT. There are the sensors that are just counting anonymous data about traffic. Those are even shared with the public. If you go to our public portals, you will see that data shared with the public. And it's for civic good, and it does a lot of good. We have, at the other extreme, we have homeland security sensitive data, like video footage from police cameras. That goes through a lot of regulations. We don't do facial recognition on the public right of way with those cameras, but we do get traffic analytics and intelligence out of those cameras that we use in our community intelligence center, also for traffic, for finding a missing child in the middle of a big event. So we use analytics and AI for video analytics and things like that. But that is highly regulated, has a 30-day retention as per statutes, is encrypted, is segregated, and it's not stored in our network. It goes to FDLE or FBI type of centers where they manage all the high security of that. And in the middle, we have multiple applications, like we have code enforcement cameras that are monitoring illegal dumping. So those have, our code enforcement have less security. So basically there's data governance and there is security that applies to different type of data. And we take that very seriously. So privacy security is not an afterthought. It's something that comes from the very moment we are thinking on a project. At the ideation stage, we have to apply all those frameworks. And we get more than 8 audits a year from all those agencies, from FBI, and they look, they dot the I's and cross the T's in terms of our compliance with HIPAA, PCI, PII, PHI, so different acronyms that talk about compliance with different regulatory frameworks. So we are a highly regulated agency, and we take that very, very seriously.
Data is really messy, and opportunistic data is just an example of how we just, without discernment, like a fishing trawler, we don't do line fishing. It scrapes the seabed, and indiscriminately we get garbage in, garbage out sometimes. In Illinois, we have the Biometric Information Privacy Act, which is extremely good, rigorous protection for biometric data, voice data included in that. So it really depends, the space and the place, of how you can get data from various jurisdictions. So that is a super important question. As for all the other ways that we could purposefully collect that data, this has a lot of implications for even health, right? So if we have computer vision technologies enacted in these, in drone surveillance, for example, and it can discern between a healthy animal's gait, you can see how we might be tempted to generalize to, well, how well could it determine a human's health? And later on down the line, because I do think about these dystopian scenarios, how might that be used against various disabled populations, right? So these are all issues that we do still need to think about as we indiscriminately collect data for any and all purposes.
Just one comment. We heard earlier about the Sidewalk Toronto project, the Google's smart city project that fell apart. One of the reasons it fell apart was because they tried to develop a governance framework for urban data that, it had some, I think, like good attributes, but it was really like not fully thought through. And then the sort of presumption that Sidewalk had in like that they would be the ones to propose it rather than having it be a more bottom-up participatory public process or one led by government was the thing that ultimately I think killed it. But I haven't seen like a serious comprehensive effort to try to address that since then. I think like property developers, local governments are just scared to do it in that kind of comprehensive way. And I don't know what it's going to take to like revisit that question. Like what is sort of like the blueprint, the best practice for urban data governance?
This is the last question before the break.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to kind of share with you how I feel about the smart cities concept. To me, it's a totalitarian, total lack of freedom, under surveillance 24/7, no freedom whatsoever. And then the fact that the AI is having so much impact on our lives and will have much more impact on our lives in the future, to the point that Yuval Harari has said there's going to be a lot of people without employment. So they're going to be, what then, he was asked, well, what are we going to do with all these useless people that have been described as? And then he answered, well, we'll entertain them with video games and drugs. Okay? And they said, okay, so how are they going to, eat and survive? Okay, well, we'll have to implement the universal basic income. So that is our future, the way I see it. It's very scary. I don't want it. I don't like it. I refuse. What can we do? Thank you.
We need to discern and talk about resistance, what that looks like, whether or not the technology serves us, serves humanity. And Frank Pasquale from Cornell likes to always say that LLMs are language models, they're not knowledge models. Realizing that we give AI as a concept way too much power over our agency as humans is an issue that we need to reckon with and be really jealously guarding that task, right, of humans to manage our own lives. But some really good examples about what we do want to automate that needs thinking through. Yeah, I don't want to go into a sewer. I would love a robot to do that. So, there are places, but we shouldn't just give over control over our cities to AI.
If I can follow on that last point about when you were talking, I agree with all of your sentiments, and I think it's an important set of concerns to raise. I tend to think about these like, okay, and like narrower use cases or policy problems. And one that has been pretty well studied is the impact on long haul trucking. And there are a lot of reasons to automate long haul trucking. It would be more efficient. It would make the country safer. There was a long period during the pandemic where this country could not have gone to war if it had to defend itself because our trucking system was non-functioning. Safety, cost of goods, there's lots of benefits. Unfortunately, there are several million people who make a living as long-haul truck drivers. And so there's a think tank in DC called Securing America's Future Energy that did a pretty solid piece of work looking at like, what does that transition to full automation for the long-haul truck fleet look like? And what are the policy backstops we need to put into place, either to provide direct income support, to retrain, whatever it is. And it was kind of a multi-pronged portfolio of policies that they were presenting to Congress and saying like, look, this is what you can do if you think this is a good technology to implement and that these people need to be protected from the impacts. And that's policy making, policy analysis to me. And while it doesn't address the kind of comprehensive societal change issues that you're raising, it does give us some agency to deal with like the more specific impacts. So. We can't hear.
Stop.
So my answer to that is, okay, you have to watch then the video, the 2016 video made by the World Economic Forum, and it's a better known, I think it's the 8 predictions for 2030, I'm not sure, but it's known as you will own nothing and you'll be happy. And that is my answer to all of you. I mean, it is the future for the smart cities. Our future with the smart cities is a very, very sad future. Thank you.
On this very pessimistic note, we break for the lunch, and hopefully we'll lift your spirit again in the afternoon session. Thank you.